Hello, this is Jeff Stana from Americans in France, and I'm going to talk about the French presidential election. It's now over, but I'm going to talk about and tell you what happens next. All right, first of all, let's talk about the results. This is the result. Francois Hollande won with 51.6% of the vote, and Nicolas Sarkozy lost 48.4. It was closer than expected. But interestingly enough, Holland, who's now the second socialist president, or will be the second socialist president, got a little bit less than Francois Mitterrand got when he was first elected in 1981. And the turnout was 80%, a little over 80%. Okay, so what are the important dates? So, May 15th, that's the date when Francois Hollande will be sworn in as president. He was elected May 6th, so you can see that it happens pretty quickly in France. The next day, he will go to Germany. He will go meet Angela Merkel because tradition in France is pretty traditional. The president usually goes and sees the German chancellor. And also on this, probably the 15th or 16th, he will announce his, more than likely the 15th, I think, he will announce his prime minister. He will choose the prime minister, and then the prime minister will form a government. And then on May 18th, Holland has to he goes to the G8 meeting, and then next day or the day after, he goes to a NATO. He goes to the G8 meeting in Camp David in the U.S., and then he goes to NATO meeting in Chicago. So you can see that his first week in office is going to be very, very, very busy. And then France has legislative elections on June 10th and June 17th. The way it works in France is that first they have the presidential election. Normally, what happens, whatever party, or the president of the party that wins, will usually get a legislative majority. That's kind of the way it works. The logic of France is first you choose the president, and then after that happens, usually the voters will give the president a majority in parliament. It's pretty much happened every time like that. Every time when you have an election, even if they change, like here it's a change of power from one party to another, nevertheless, the parliament has already been dissolved. Its mandate has run out, so there'll be new elections. And generally speaking, there should be a socialist majority, or they should have a coalition, maybe with the Greens, and they should have a working coalition. They should have a working majority. That's just kind of the way it works out in France. Kind of the French, just the way it is. All right, what are his first acts? So he has about a month where he won't have a parliament, but he can work by decree. And pretty much what he'll do. So the first thing he's going to do is going to pick his PM, the prime minister. That's the first thing he does. Then he's going to cut his salary 30%. He will cut his salary 30% and salary of the ministers. The ministers will be, so there will be about, I think as I understand, there'll be 15 ministers, 15 major ministers, and everybody's going to get a 30% cut in pay. He's going to repeal the TVA Sociale. Basically, it was the idea with the TVA Sociale was you put payroll taxes onto the TVA, which is a value-added tax, similar but not exactly like a sales tax. But basically, you would move. The idea was it was done by Sarkozy, the outgoing president, to shift the payroll burden from employers to the general public, to the consumption essentially. And Holland doesn't like that, so he's going to repeal it. Stop 1 out of 2. Basically, something that Sarkozy had done for like the last 5 years, as long as he had been in power, is basically to only replace 1 out of 2 civil servants who retire. France is a large civil service, and Sarkozy was trying to cut back, and basically he was doing it by essentially not job cuts, but basically when somebody retired, they would only replace 1 out of 2 civil servants. There'll be a price freeze on the price of gasoline. There'll be a 3-month freeze on the price of gasoline. That was something that he promised to do. And then back to school. Basically, what he's going to do is he's going to augment the back to school. Basically, what it is in France, when the back to school time comes, families get a certain allowance. They get an allowance from the government. I don't know how much it is, but he's going to increase it by 25%. And there's also going to be an audit, and this is, I'm not sure if this is something that's done all the time, but it's going to be an audit of basically the books of France. And so to see, where the money, to see the money situation, because France has a large debt and has a deficit. And basically, I've heard some commentators say this is going to basically give him political cover. He's for any campaign promises that he can't really make because it's just too expensive. Because he's going to audit the books and he'll see how things are going in France and see really, try to get a real idea of how the government finances are. And they're probably also going to downgrade the growth estimates. Holland said he was going to balance the budget by the end of his mandate in 2017, but a lot of that was going to come through growth. Because if you have 3% growth, you don't have a deficit in France because the taxes, the government is able to get more in taxes. Thanks for watching and see you next time.